Hey NFL fans, before we dive into today's hottest stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update from NFL News Now. If you thought Howie Roseman was done making moves, think again. The Philadelphia Eagles have just pulled off another blockbuster that's got the entire NFL world buzzing. With the trade deadline breathing down everyone's neck, the Eagles are doing what the Eagles do best, staying aggressive, staying unpredictable, and pushing every possible button to make another Super Bowl run. This time, the headline is massive. Jaelan Phillips, the Miami Dolphins' young defensive phenom, is heading to Philly. The price? A 2026 third-round pick. And honestly, when you look at it from every angle, this move screams championship mindset. The Eagles didn't just get a good player. They got an elite-level pass rusher who could completely reshape their defensive identity for the rest of the season. Now, let's talk about what this really means. Because for anyone who's been watching the Eagles this year, one thing's been crystal clear: that front seven needed help. Sure, they've still got guys who can make plays, but the production off the edge has dipped. Injuries have taken a toll, and the consistency just hasn't been there. The defense, which used to strike fear into quarterbacks across the league, has looked a little too human. So when a talent like Jaelan Phillips suddenly becomes available, you don't wait around. You move. You strike. And Howie Roseman, the man who might just be addicted to blockbuster trades, wasted no time making that happen. Jaelan Phillips isn't just another name on the roster. This guy is a former first-round pick from 2021 who's been a menace since the day he stepped into the league. The numbers speak for themselves: 7 or more sacks in each of his first 2 seasons, playing every single game. That's rare consistency in a league where durability is often the difference between potential and stardom. And then, just when he was on pace for his best year, yet in 2023, tragedy struck. A torn Achilles. Season over. But here's the thing. Even before that injury, in just 8 games, he had already racked up 6.5 sacks. He was dominating offensive lines. He was wrecking plays. He was the kind of player that offensive coordinators had to game plan around. And now, after working his way back from that injury, he's rounding into form again, with 3 sacks already this season. That's the version of Jaelan Phillips that's about to walk into the NovaCare complex. Hungry, healthy, and ready to prove to the league that he's still that guy. From a value standpoint, a third-round pick for a player of Phillips' caliber almost feels like stealing. Sure, his contract is up at the end of the season, and yes, there's always the risk of him being just a rental. But when you dig deeper, this move actually makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. They're sending their own third-rounder, which, let's be honest, is probably going to be late in the round anyway. And even if Phillips leaves after the season, he's still young enough and talented enough that his departure would likely earn the Eagles a compensatory pick in 2027. In other words, this could end up being a zero-cost rental, or better yet, a long-term investment if they decide to lock him up with a new contract. The man's only 26 years old. He's just entering his prime. The kind of pass rusher who can give you double-digit sacks for years if you surround him with the right system and motivation. And Philadelphia has both. But what makes this move even juicier, and honestly, even more poetic, is the Vic Fangio connection. If you remember, Fangio was the defensive coordinator in Miami last season, the very same season Phillips was on track to break out in a big way. Fangio is known for his complex, disciplined defensive schemes that thrive on smart, athletic edge players who can not only rush the passer, but also set the edge and drop into coverage when needed. Phillips was the perfect fit for that system. Under Fangio, he wasn't just productive, he looked dominant. Fangio has even gone on record praising Phillips' intelligence, his work ethic, and his motor. Now, fate brings them back together in Philadelphia. If Fangio could unlock that level of play once, imagine what he can do now with Phillips fully healthy, surrounded by one of the most talented defensive fronts in football. For Eagles fans, this is a dream reunion that could turn the defense from good to terrifying. And let's not forget what this move does for the overall composition of the Eagles' defense. It's not just Phillips. Over the past week, Howie Roseman has gone full mad scientist mode, trading for multiple defensive players to reshape the unit midseason. Alongside Phillips, they've added cornerback Jair Alexander, a proven shutdown presence on the outside, and defensive lineman Michael Carter to add depth and versatility in the trenches. You combine that with internal reinforcements coming back from injury, and suddenly the Eagles' defense looks like a completely different beast. Nolan Smith, the explosive rookie out of Georgia, is set to return from injured reserve and could finally make his long-awaited debut on Monday Night Football against the Packers. Brandon Graham, a franchise legend and emotional leader, is expected to make his season debut as well. Cornerback Jacorian Bennett, who showed flashes before getting hurt, is also returning to action. This defense is getting healthy, deep, and dangerous right when it matters most. What makes all of this so fascinating is the timing. Around the league, a lot of contenders are starting to show their cracks. The 49ers have cooled off. The Lions have had some shaky outings. The Cowboys, as always, look inconsistent. The NFC is wide open, and the Eagles clearly see an opportunity to seize control before the stretch run. They know that to win another Lombardi trophy, they'll have to go through some elite quarterbacks. And the best way to beat elite quarterbacks is to make them uncomfortable. That's exactly what Jaelan Phillips was brought in to do. His ability to collapse the pocket, disrupt timing, and finish plays gives the Eagles the kind of pass rush presence they've been missing since last year's Super Bowl run. Pair him up with Josh Sweat, Haason Reddick, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter, and suddenly you've got a rotation that could keep any offensive line up at night. But there's also an emotional layer to this story that fans are going to love. Phillips isn't just another player switching teams. He's a guy who's had to fight through adversity, the kind that tests who you really are. From his early college days dealing with injuries to his Achilles tear in 2023, he's seen how quickly the game can be taken away. Now he gets a fresh start in one of the most passionate football cities in the world, with a coach and a fan base that feed off intensity. Philadelphia isn't for everyone. It demands toughness, grit, and resilience. And if you've watched Jaelan Phillips play, you know he embodies exactly that. His motor never stops. His energy is contagious. He plays every snap like it's his last. That's the kind of player who doesn't just fit in Philly, he thrives in Philly. From the Dolphins' perspective, this trade signals something different. Maybe they wanted to cash in while they could. Maybe they were worried about his contract situation. But for the Eagles, it's an all-in move that fits perfectly. With their DNA, they've never been afraid to gamble on talent, and more often than not, it pays off. Just think about it. In the last few seasons, they've managed to rebuild on the fly while still contending year after year. That's not luck. That's strategy. And that's why Roseman continues to be one of the most respected general managers in football. Every time the rest of the league thinks he's done dealing, he finds another way to reload. Now, as we head into the second half of the season, the expectations in Philadelphia couldn't be higher. Fans are buzzing. The locker room feels re-energized. And the message is clear. This team is going for it. No excuses, no holding back. With Jaelan Phillips in the mix, the defense finally has the kind of edge presence that can turn close games into comfortable wins. If Fangio can recreate that magic from Miami and Phillips stays healthy, this could go down as one of the best mid-season trades in recent Eagles history. Because at the end of the day, football isn't just about talent, it's about timing. And right now, the timing feels perfect. The NFC better watch out, because the Eagles just got a lot more dangerous. Keep watching as we analyze more details about some rumors. The NFL world is buzzing. The rumor mills are working overtime, and the sports media landscape is lit up with one seismic headline. Myles Garrett, yes, the Myles Garrett, is reportedly set to become a Philadelphia Eagle. If this turns out to be true, we're not just talking about a roster move. We're talking about a tectonic shift in the NFC East, a move that could redefine the entire defensive identity of the Eagles for years to come. Sources who claim to have inside knowledge whisper that the conversations have been intense, high stakes, and extremely private, and the mere hint of Garrett in midnight green has sent shivers down rival front offices. Can you imagine the headlines when this is officially confirmed? Defensive earthquake rocks Philadelphia. Garrett turns Eagles' pass rush into a juggernaut. Opposing QBs may need a map and compass to navigate this front seven. It's dramatic, it's bold, and it's exactly the kind of high-stakes narrative that makes NFL off-season chatter irresistible. Now, let's pause for a second and think about the magnitude of this. Myles Garrett isn't just a top-tier defensive end. He's a generational talent, a player whose presence on the field alters the very geometry of the game. Teams don't just plan to stop him, they try to survive him. And the Eagles, already a franchise that prides itself on resilience, on aggressive, unrelenting football, are supposedly in the final stages of negotiations that could see him don the iconic eagle wings on his helmet. There's talk among insiders that Garrett has been intrigued not just by the contract numbers, but by the philosophy of Philly football itself. Fast, physical, fearless, and unapologetically aggressive. Philadelphia has a culture of grit, a fan base that thrives on intensity and commitment, and Garrett's personality, confident, dominant, unafraid of confrontation, seems like a perfect match. Could this be the marriage of talent and temperament that elevates the Eagles from perennial contenders to an almost unstoppable force on the defensive side? Some analysts are already saying yes, while others warn it's a risky play, a high-wire gamble that could either define or derail the team's trajectory. But here's where the rumor really gets spicy. Word is that Garrett has been doing his homework on Philly, asking insiders, former players, and even coaches about the city's football culture. He's reportedly fascinated by the stadium, the fans, the intensity of the home crowd, and the pressure cooker environment that Lincoln Financial Field represents. People close to the negotiations hint that he sees it as a challenge, something to prove, not just to himself, but to an entire division and to the league. And the Eagles? They're allegedly rolling out the red carpet, offering not just financial incentives, but a vision, a defensive system built around him, one that maximizes his unparalleled pass rushing skills, his speed, his power, and his relentless pursuit of quarterbacks. Imagine it, Garrett lining up opposite whoever's under center, forcing offenses to rethink their game plans, constantly accounting for the single most disruptive force in the NFL today. The ripple effect is enormous, not just for the Eagles' opponents, but for the entire NFC East. Of course, this is the kind of story that makes Twitter explode. Fans are already debating possible formations, sack totals, and defensive alignments. Some mock up imaginary highlight reels where Garrett single-handedly dismantles top quarterbacks, turning crucial third downs into nightmares. Others speculate on the synergy between Garrett and the Eagles' existing defensive talent, wondering how a unit that's already competitive could become something borderline unstoppable. If the rumors hold, the Eagles would be sending a message that goes far beyond wins and losses. They're saying, we're building a defense that's meant to dominate, to intimidate, to set the tone for the entire league. It's the kind of strategic statement that can shift power dynamics, that forces rival GMs to recalibrate their off-season priorities, that turns speculative chatter into serious defensive scheming. And let's not underestimate the cultural impact, either. Philadelphia fans are some of the most passionate, the most demanding, and the most invested in football in the country. Garrett stepping onto that field could become a symbol, a rallying point for a city that lives and breathes its team's success. People close to the situation claim that Garrett has been engaged in community initiatives and meetings with local leaders even before a contract is signed, as if he's preparing to embed himself in the city's psyche, to become a figure larger than football itself. It's exactly the kind of narrative that sells itself. A superstar athlete not just joining a team, but embracing a city, a fan base, and an identity that will reverberate for seasons. And the more whispers circulate, the more anticipation builds, as if the league itself is holding its breath, waiting to see if Philadelphia is about to unleash a defensive revolution. Of course, every rumor has its skeptics. Some point to cap space limitations, contract complexities, and the potential for injury risk as reasons this move might stall. Others wonder whether Garrett is really willing to commit to a franchise with an already intense media scrutiny and fan pressure. But even the skeptics admit that the very fact this is being discussed, that front offices are actively exploring it, changes the narrative. Suddenly, Philadelphia isn't just a team. It's a magnet for top-tier talent, a city where elite athletes might see both challenge and opportunity. And the strategic implications are tantalizing. Opponents now have to consider multiple game planning scenarios, and even before Garrett's cleats hit the turf, there's a psychological edge at play. Teams fear what they cannot control, and rumors alone have already created a sense of defensive dread for anyone facing the Eagles next season. In addition, insiders are hinting at subtle negotiations behind the scenes, moves that could involve clever structuring of incentives, performance bonuses, and other creative financial instruments to make the deal both palatable and strategic. It's said that Garrett's agent is a master at leveraging both talent and market perception, and that the Eagles' front office is equally adept at navigating high-stakes acquisitions. The result? A story that reads less like a transaction and more like a chess match, where every move has consequences, every whisper carries weight, and every passing day, without confirmation, intensifies the suspense. Fans, analysts, and rivals alike are left wondering, is this really happening, or is it the NFL equivalent of a fever dream? Meanwhile, the media storm continues to build. Podcasts are dissecting every possible angle, YouTube commentators are speculating about defensive schemes, and Twitter threads are exploding with gifs of Garrett's most ferocious plays over the past few seasons. Some of the chatter is purely fan-driven, wild, and over the top, but even seasoned reporters are cautiously reporting that sources within the league believe a deal could be imminent. The phrase defensive earthquake keeps popping up, not just as hyperbole, but as a metaphor for the disruptive potential of Garrett joining a defense that already has aspirations of dominance. If the rumors solidify into reality, the Eagles aren't just signing a player, they're announcing an era. The final twist in the story, according to insiders, could be the timing. Negotiations are said to be moving fast, but there's also an element of suspense, a calculated delay designed to maximize both leverage and impact. By holding back confirmation, the Eagles may be ensuring that the NFL landscape feels the tremors, that the anticipation builds to almost unbearable levels. For fans, this means weeks of speculation, debate, and dream scenarios. Imagining Garrett rushing the passer, sacking the opposing quarterback in critical moments, and completely altering the momentum of games. Analysts are already projecting numbers that seem almost absurd: double-digit sacks, game-changing forced fumbles, and a defensive presence that makes the Eagles' secondary look even stronger. It's a scenario that seems almost too good to be true, and perhaps that's part of the allure. So here we are. The rumor mill is alive. The anticipation is sky-high, and the name on everyone's lips is Myles Garrett. The Eagles, a team already respected for its intensity and strategic cunning, could be on the verge of a transformation that goes far beyond the stat sheet. Whether this is a harbinger of glory, a masterstroke of roster building, or a high-risk maneuver that defines the team for better or worse, one thing is clear: the NFL world is watching. The whispers, the hints, the subtle leaks, and the private negotiations are all contributing to a narrative that feels like it was ripped straight from a sports drama. And if Garrett really does become an Eagle, Philadelphia's defense may never be the same again. Rival quarterbacks might start sleeping with one eye open. Fans will flood the stadium in anticipation of the first game with the new defensive titan in their lineup. And in the end, this could be remembered as the off-season moment when the Eagles didn't just sign a player. They signaled a revolution, one sack at a time, one quarterback panic at a time, and one seismic defensive shift that could echo through the league for years to come. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your fellow NFL fans. Stay tuned for more updates, only here on NFL News Now.